Now that we have finished constructing our rig, we're ready to now take our mesh and bind it to the skeleton that we've built for it. We'll actually be able to use a smooth bind on this character with a fall off, so we're going to be able to have some really nice deformations for a game character. Now we're also going to learn a technique for binding characters in general, something that I really like to do. So let's say we get right into the lesson. First off, we'll make sure that our character will able to be selected. Okay, so we can just switch our mode for our layers. Now that that's done, remember we did label our bones in a certain way that we can quickly access only the bones we'd like to have tied to our bind. So let's go ahead and learn a way we can quickly select them, and we could actually use wildcards. So we'll go ahead and go up to our status bar and just close off, if we need to, just certain sections so we can access or have access to our object select text field at the top of the status bar. And if you need to, you can go ahead and switch at the drop down arrow to the left of it. You can switch to a number of things: absolute, transform, relative, renaming objects from here, but we're going to go to select by name. From there, let's type in bn asterisk or wildcard. Okay, now that's done, if we hit enter, typing this in, notice mine's going to go through and select all of the objects with that prefix. So you can see how handy that is to only select the objects we'd like to have tied to our bind. Now that that's done, we can shift select our character and go up to skin, smooth skin options, and I'll reset the settings here. Alrighty, well, going down the line, for our bind tool, we'll actually want to switch this to selected joints, okay, because we have gone through and selected all of the joints we'd like to tie to our mesh. Bind method, that's going to be really nice to use, just closest in hierarchy, so we'll leave that. Max influence, we'll switch that to 1. Okay, again, we're just blocking out our weights initially. And we'll also uncheck maintain max influence, so we could add more later on. Drop off rate we'll also set to 1, so we can block out our weights. Now with all of this set, we can go ahead and hit bind skin. Great. So now that this is done, if we were to select one of our objects, and notice if we accidentally, let's say, select an IK handle, even though it's tied to our control objects, one thing we can do is utilize our groups to prevent us doing that altogether. If we went to our outliner and opened up all the way till we got to our IK's group, notice we have left the visibility attribute. All we need to do is turn it off, and we no longer have problems selecting our IK handle. And the same thing applies to our bones as well, so that's really handy. Or another option you have for bones and IKs is to hide them in your viewport. Okay, but notice if we were to now move our controls around, alright, we have a few areas that need fixing, but for the most part this isn't bad at all. And I do want to mention that we're not going to go through editing the weight of this entire character, but we're just going to send you off on your way with a good workflow that you can use for doing just that. Okay, for really adding a really decent weighting to this bind. Okay, another helpful thing is to look at the component editor, which we could also add to our shelf. So that's Control Shift, we'll go to Window, General Editors, and Component Editor to add that. If we open it up and go to our Smooth Skin tab, so make sure we're underneath it, we can go ahead and just check to make sure that all of the objects we like to have added are added. Okay, so as we go through, we can see that, alright, it looks like the hose is missing, so we'll want to add those, and let's see if there's anything else. Also looks like the shoulders are missing as well. So if we were to go ahead and quickly close out the component editor, we can go ahead and select the object, and as we scroll down, it looks like, alright, no bind information is tied to any of these objects at all. If we were to select our arm, for example, you can see the bind pose skin cluster on them, but these objects don't have them at all. So this is not going to be a problem at all. All we'll need to do is add them as influence objects. So let's go ahead and do just that. We can select our bones that need to be added. So that's our shoulder pads and also the hoses at the back. And with them selected, we shift select our character and go up to skin, edit smooth skin, and go to add influence. From there we can reset our settings. So here are the default settings, but we're not using geometry. We can check that off. The drop off rate we can set to 1. Again, we're just blocking our information. I like to turn on lock weights. This allows us to have our weights not redistribute throughout our character. Okay, so we have manual control using this, and then we can just hit add afterwards. So now each bone here should have its skin cluster tied down. And if we were to go back to our component editor, we should see that those objects have been added. So there's the hose. Okay, and we'll go through. We'll find our next object. There's the shoulder pad. And going to the right side now, we have the hose and shoulder pad. Alrighty, great. So now that all of these things have been done, what we're ready to now do is start editing our weights. So again, we're going to go ahead and start by blocking out the weights, okay, and just on a few areas. And then from there, we'll learn techniques for adding more of a fall off to certain areas that would need it.